Hi, this is Dr. Steven with Outclick Magazine, and today we are going to bring you a special program to talk about the Smart Ride here in South Florida. We're going to bring to you today Glenn Weinzheimer, the founder, and some of the riders. We're going to introduce them here in a moment. Everyone, welcome to the program.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you. We're going to introduce everyone here in a minute. But Glenn, you are the founder. If someone has not heard of the Smart Ride, give us your snapshot of what it is and what the ride entails.
Sure. The Reader's Digest version is Smart Ride is a 2-day, 165-mile bicycle ride from Miami to Key West, where 100% of everything that our participants raise is guaranteed to go back to 6 AIDS organizations throughout the state of Florida. And in the last 16 years, we've raised $11.8 million. And obviously, this year, life's a little different with the pandemic.
Everyone that goes on the ride says it is so phenomenal and is a life-changing experience. And they get on their bikes actually and ride from Miami to Key West. It is no short journey, but it's a phenomenal experience from everyone that goes. How is it different this year because of COVID-19? How have you completely reshaped the Smart Ride, Glenn?
So what we had to do was reimagine the ride. Obviously you can't have groups larger than 15, 20 at any location, which precluded us from actually being able to ride from Miami to Key West, as well as bring people in from around the country. Traditionally, we have like 39 states represented, and so our second largest market of participants is from out of state. So in order to do that, we decided that people would have the option to do their own metric of 165, which means if they want to ride 165 miles, as you'll hear from our other people on this call, they can ride from Miami to Key West on their own, unsupported. They can ride, there's a group in Palm Beach that are riding up to Hutchinson Island and riding back. There are folks in Key West that are going up to Isla Morada and riding 100 miles back south. So everyone can do their own thing. And on top of that, those who may not be the strongest riders, normally this is a 2-day ride, we're giving them 3 days to accomplish the same goal. And if you're not a rider, you can do your metric of 165. So if you want to run 1.65 miles, you can do that. If you want to do 165 sit-ups or push-ups or pull-ups, you can do that. We have a person doing 16.5 miles on a stand-up paddleboard next weekend. So, you can volunteer 16.5 hours, whatever your metric of 165 is, so that we can still continue to raise the funds for the agencies that benefit. This year is we always say this year is really important. But this year, the money that we raise for many of our agencies is the only large sum of money they can potentially get. All their other fundraising for unrestricted funds has been eliminated. Dining Out for Life, that would give one of our agencies $75,000, that was canceled and they can't make it back. Galas are canceled and you can't do 2 in 1 year next year. So they're all trying to provide the same services with the funds that they may have in reserve, and trying to help more people that find themselves food insecure, housing insecure, folks that never had to ask for help before, but now can't make their copays. So the burden on the agencies is greater than it's ever been. And we're like the only last bastion to be able to try to do something significant within this year. And these 3 online have been, and Ed will talk about, she's been with the ride for all 16 years. This will be her 17th. Don's been with us like 4 years. And he's our #1 fundraiser, and his team is the #1 fundraiser this year. And then Jonathan is on our board, and this will be his first time riding.
Yeah, it's phenomenal. Let's go ahead and introduce them. We'll start with Don. Don, tell us where you live and tell us about your experience with Smart Ride.
I live in Key West, Florida, and my initial introduction to the Smart Ride was in 2015. Traditionally in Key West, they have a tea dance on Sunday afternoon at the La Da. And I walked in and they were having a team fundraiser. This was in September of 2015. And I asked what it was about. And I said, well, I'm riding my mountain bike 25 miles a day. I'll do it. And I'll raise $5,000. And the captain looked at me like, whatever, fatty. And I ended up sick my first year. And as you described, it was a life-changing experience. And as a result of the ride, I've met so many incredible people from my own hometown here in Key West to Fort Lauderdale and Tampa and Orlando.
And your husband.
Yes, And I also met my husband on the ride in 2016. We were friends for a couple of years, but I always looked forward to riding with him and hanging out with him. And then ultimately we became partners.
That I didn't realize that when we were chatting before that you met your partner on the Smart Ride. So not only is it an altruistic motive, it's also a dating opportunity.
We were roommates.
Wow. Phenomenal. So the caveat is that you, Glenn, have totally reimagined the Smart Ride for this year. And when you and I met and you were telling me what you did and gave all these other opportunities, you really took such a challenging program and completely reimagined it. But Don, you have an amazing story. Is there anything else you want to share about how you have been impacted by the Smart Ride or what you've learned?
I was very active playing softball in the 90s throughout in the gay leagues and all across the United States. And I lost many, many friends. I lost my best friend in 1995 to AIDS. And this is how I honor his memory and all the friends that I lost. So it's very special.
It's a great way to honor someone. And we've talked with Latino Salute and some of those people who've said that during COVID, the HIV AIDS has sort of kind of taken a back seat. And they said, we're still here fighting it. And so it's interesting, the economic development of that. Jonathan, tell us about yourself and your experience with the Smart Ride.
I started with, I learned about the Smart Ride because in 2014, two of our best friends in Fort Lauderdale were riding it. We'd never heard of it before, but they told us about it. It ends in Key West, and we're like, hey, we're up for a party in Key West. So we went down to Key West for the weekend to meet them at the closing ceremonies, which was probably one of the most moving and powerful experiences. And I left that weekend saying, I have to be a part of this. And I soon after started working with Glenn in the offices of the Smart Ride, and I helped manage all the donations and process all of that, and still work a lot behind the scenes. A little over a year ago, I was invited to join their board of directors, which I was happy to do because I believe in this so much. And with the pandemic this year, with 8 months to kill, I got back on my bicycle, and I thought next year for my 55th birthday, I would do the Smart Ride, but no time like the present. I've been riding around since April, so I'm going to put that to use next week and do my 165. I might take a little more time than 3 days, but I'm going to ride all week next week.
When Glenn and I were talking, I realized he's created a way for so many other people to be involved. And I don't know if you're going to do this after COVID's over or not, but give so many people ways. I don't know if I can bike ride, but maybe I can do something to get to the 165. Jonathan, tell us about some of the friendships you've made. That's probably one of the things I'm interested in.
It's really funny. Don and I talk all the time, usually about money. But the one point he made, which is the saddest thing about this year and COVID, is that so many of us, and there's Glenn, 700 of us at least annually that are together that are not going to get to see our friends this year, because this is the one time a year where we spend, some of us spend 5-6 days together, but all the participants spend at least 3 days or more together. And it's the only time of the year that all of our friends from all over the state, let alone the country, actually get to do something useful that we all are so passionate about and get to celebrate each other and this event. And it's just sort of sad that, I'm glad we're doing it, don't get me wrong, but it's sad that we're going to be doing it sort of virtually and I'm not going to be able to have that drink with Don that I usually have this year.
And Jonathan, how many years have you been doing the Smart Ride?
I've been involved since 2015, mostly on the crew side and on the production side, but this is my first year that I'll be on a bicycle.
Okay. And I think that's a good point. If you are not a rider, there's lots of other opportunities to be involved on the crew and production side. So maybe we'll talk about that here at the end. Don't let me forget, Glenn. Annette, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Annette, where are you from? Or where are you at? And we're having a little delay on Annette's video, so we'll let Annette get caught up on your video.
St. Petersburg.
Okay. Annette, how many years have you been doing the Smart Ride? Tell us about your experience.
On the Gulf Coast, and this will be my okay. So this will be my 17th year for the Smart Ride. I previously had done the 3-day ride, so this is really my 23rd age ride in Florida, and it's just been getting better and better every year. And like the guys have said, we've just made so many friends over the years. I started doing it because I lost my best friend to AIDS, and it was very difficult. And this has really given me some resolve to, kind of dedicate my rides to him every year.
I guess if we were to maybe take a minute and think about the dollars that you've raised and think about the number of lives that you have literally saved as a result of your efforts, from the efforts of just what you all have done. That's amazing. Glenn, what were you going to say before?
Well, two things as we were talking about volunteering as opposed to, one of the things Jonathan did is he played a major role in our dispatch, which actually runs the ride on the ride of communicating with everyone, because we have a system set up that if you break down or you get hurt or anything like that, we have a whole process of, one of the things that makes this event unique is it's a fully supported ride. And by that, I mean, we have sweep vehicles and SAG vehicles and a full medical team that travels with us. We have rest stops every 15 to 20 miles to provide everyone food and housing overnight. But to coordinate that weekend with 750 participants, one of the jobs that John had for us and has done over the years is to be that command center. It's a mobile command center that keeps the communication between our 250 volunteers, our riders that are out on the road, the different municipalities that we pass through. And so, depending on your background and stuff, you can do everything from drive a truck to deliver water, to work at a rest stop, to be, in the dispatch van as the driver. There's so many opportunities for people like you, Steve, that don't think they can do the 165 miles. But, once they volunteer, chances are they're going to get a bug and go, if you can do it, I can do it. You look at it as 5 20-mile rides. 20-mile rides on day one. And you look at it as, 65 miles on day two. It's again like 3 or 4 rest stops. So if you can do 15 to 20 miles, you'll be surprised how fast you end up doing the full 100. The other thing I wanted to mention about Annette is when we first started this in 2003, we started working on it around 2002. And Annette and Connie and Leah were the 3 people that I reached out to on the west coast of Florida to help make the decision that we were actually going to do this, because I knew them from past events. And all 3 of them jumped on and said, we'll do this. You're going to get back 100%. We'll do this. And they were part of the reason that small group, we use Margaret Mead's quote all the time, never doubt that a small group of thoughtful, committed citizens can change the world. Indeed, it's the only thing that ever has. And truly, our success, or our actually starting this, had a lot to do with Annette and Leah and Connie. And they've been with us all 17 years.
And then you have cheerleaders. I've heard about the cheerleaders on the road as the bikers go by. I've heard stories about that. If you want to share a little bit about that.
Sure. I mean, if someone wants to jump in, they can have the platform. The cheerleaders are there at all the strategic points along the ride. As the day goes on and you get a little bit more tired and a little more dehydrated, and you've been in your head, you start to get to a place where you start to burn out a little bit. And the cheerleaders are all those critical places to give you that burst of energy to do the next couple of miles. There was a guy, the year we had, because of a hurricane, we had to move the ride from November one year to January. It was probably the coldest day on record in Florida. It pretty much hailed on the ride. And there was a gentleman who was standing in Key West at the point where US 1 meets US 1, I guess, in Key West. And he was on the little concrete cutout. And he was waving at riders in the rain, and his feet were cold and everything. And one of the riders after the ride said to me, I need to know who this guy was. He probably thinks, why did they make me stand out there in the rain? I serve no purpose. And there was a rider who was ready to give up as soon as he got to that point. And he saw that person standing there and waving him on. And he got enough energy and courage to continue and finish the ride. Had it not been for that volunteer, that person would not have finished the ride that day. The impact that we as individuals make is so strong, and the smallest gestures make such a difference. And how you can empower other people to do things just by the spirit and energy that you have. And these guys on the call are all part of that.
And that's such a teachable moment for people, is that they learn the little things make such a difference. I think you have restaurants that donate food for the ride, to keep the ride going. It's really such a community effort, because it is, if you really sit down and think about all the details that it takes to put it on. Glenn, do you want to tell us some of the organizations that benefit from the ride?
Sure. This year we crossed the state. So if you start in the southernmost point, it would be AH of Monroe. Then you go up to Miami, and it's Pride Lines Youth. Well, they used to be Pride Lines Youth Services, but Pride Lines. Then you get into Broward County, it's Broward House. You get up into Palm Beach, it's Compass, GLCC. You go further north to Orlando, and it's Miracle of Love. And then you go over to the West Coast, and it's they changed their name, Metro Inclusive, which is in both Tampa and St. Pete. So those 6 agencies all get the principal funding from the event.
Okay. Are you going to do? I remember you had the check writing parties before, and they were a lot of fun. Do you have a plan yet for this year? You probably do, but what's in the works for that?
It'll be the second week in January, and honestly, with the pandemic, and we don't see any major recovery in the next 4 months, we're probably going to have to do something more virtual this year. We're probably going to, find a location with some key folks, probably the executive directors of each agency alone. And then we'll broadcast it, just for the sake of keeping people safe. It's funny, because the most important thing on the ride is we raise a lot of money and, give people a challenge. But we've all talked about many times that if somebody gets hurt because of negligence on our part, and we didn't do everything we could to make sure that everyone is safe, we couldn't do this ride, because I couldn't live with myself, and I don't think anyone else could, if we were irresponsible. So it goes back to COVID, what is the safest thing for us to do in January? And right now, I don't see it as bringing everybody together. Hopefully next year, we'll be able to get back to whatever the new normal is. But we'll still do the check ceremony and still make an impact. Last year we raised our most money ever at 1.4 million. This year, knowing everything everyone's going through right now, we're just over 511,000. And I think that's amazing, considering all the challenges everyone has had. And, every dollar will make a significant difference with these agencies and the people that ultimately need it.
Okay. Arthur's going to bring up the website. It is thesmartride.org is the website. This year is going to be November 20th through the 22nd, 2020. And they can make donations on the website, or a couple of different ways. And Don and Jonathan, we were chatting before about, do you ride individually, or do you ride with a group? Kind of give us a little bit about how you all, your paradigm and how you all ride. Jonathan, we'll start with Jonathan, if you want to jump in.
This is my first year riding, so I'm just winging it. I'm not on a team.
Oh, okay.
I'm not on a team this year. However, as a crew member in previous years, I was part of a team. So I helped with their fundraisers. I hosted fundraisers with them. So we collectively raised money as a group. So you can raise money as a crew member, even if you're not on a bike. So I did do that in the past as part of a team, but this year, as of right now, I'm solo, unless any teams want to grab me by next week.
Okay. Okay.
No, Don, you can't have him.
Yeah, but Don can really talk to the team experience.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about that, Don.
I've seen your money total. We have room for you, John.
Tell us about your team, Don. Tell us a little more about that.
Well, our team, we have done a lot of community fundraising, and we have not been able to do that. And that reaffirms the point that Glenn made. I was very, very proud to be part of the Smart Ride when it raised 1.4 million, but I have personally seen the devastation that COVID has wreaked upon our ability to fundraise. We probably, between team jerseys and fundraising, raised $60,000 or $70,000 last year. We raised 180. So to be able to raise what we have this year for the ride, to be able to raise $500,000, I'm immensely proud, and it's a testament to the people that are committed to the ride.
Well, I know everyone in our community is most appreciative of what everyone does and all of the fundraising that goes on and how this really supports our community. Again, it's November 20th through the 22nd, 2020. Glenn, do you have anything else we need to let people know about?
Don's being a little modest because before Don got involved in Key West, because Key West is probably the smallest population of all the agencies that we have. And,
Okay.
for years we struggled with Key West and getting people involved. And Don came in with we can do this attitude and grew the team to, I don't want to misquote, is it like 25 or 30? What do you have right now?
About
Forget
30,
this year.
yeah, 30 riders.
So he took that island with 30 riders, and it's pretty much, you're on the team if you're in Key West. I mean, like, even if you're training alone, you're still on the same road on the weekends with the other folks. And to raise, $100,000 plus from that small island that's always being taxed by all kinds of other benefits and organizations and people that are in need. Everyone always has their hand out. And for Don to turn that for his agency to go from receiving the least amount of money the year prior to getting the second highest amount of money the following year was a testament to him and his dedication. But that goes for like so many. He's an influencer, and and Annette is an influencer, and I think that in each one of our communities we have these individuals that help other people achieve what they think they can't, and that's what makes this ride unique. And it's hard to express or explain, and I've never been able to do it, what this ride actually means. You actually have to be on it. And Steve, you talked to me about this. Like, people keep telling you that it changed their lives, but they can't tell you why. It's about the people, it's about the moment, it's about changing lives, it's about just making a difference. But there are a lot of organizations out there that say the same thing. There's the cancer care changes lives. Heart disease, heart ride changes lives. But there's something about Smart Ride and the AIDS rides around the country that are just significantly different. And I don't know if it's because it's more personal or, but there's a difference.
Mm-hmm. I guess I would challenge your one comment, Glenn. They can tell it. They do delineate how it changed their lives. They do come back with concrete stories of the emotion that they felt and how they feel good and built relationships. And they do can delineate how they raise money to support some great organizations. So they actually are very good at articulating how they are
not good enough people to get you on the ride.
But one other thing,
I got called out on my own show. Thanks, Glenn.
You're welcome.
Thanks, Glenn.
another
Thank
thing though, that I think is also very important, and Glenn brings this up all the time, that one other thing about the ride, and I think this is very important, is that it still brings awareness to the fact that AIDS and HIV are still a pandemic of its own in our country. Many times I've talked to people at fundraisers in mixed crowds, but I've been, there have been straight audience members who have said to me, AIDS is still a thing? Oh, I thought they cured that. I mean, honestly, there is a misconception. So getting that awareness out that it is still a pandemic that needs to be addressed in the midst of a national pandemic on a greater scale that we're seeing this year is a message that needs to be heard. And the people that are fighting this this pandemic of AIDS and HIV still need the help and support this year, and maybe even more so because of the more well-known pandemic these days on top of it. So, but I think that awareness that AIDS and HIV still don't have a cure and are still out there is a strong message that the ride brings to the forefront every year.
Yeah. And to his point, most people don't realize that those getting infected at the highest rate are 13 to 21-year-olds that just haven't been educated. It's not talked about at home, so it's not part of the vernacular. And then in the end, kids are making decisions without having heard the word. And one of the things that I'm most proud of, and took a couple of years to realize, is I would be like, there's only 750 of us. What kind of impact are we making? But 10,000 people made donations last year. That means 10,000 people said the word AIDS. 10,000 people might have been sitting at a dinner table with their kids and their spouse, and they said, what's this charge on my credit card for Annette for $100? And they went, oh, Annette's riding in this bike ride for AIDS. I didn't think AIDS was a thing, and the kids are listening. And they may not engage, but they do listen and they hear it, and maybe they'll ask their friends, maybe they'll Google it, but hopefully when it comes time to make a decision, that'll pop back up in their head and go, I remember something about this. So you know, I think that this raising awareness thing is so important right now, because it has been, as Jonathan said, something that many people think has been cured or taken care of, or you don't have to worry about it, or it's one pill a day and things like that.
It's not just the money, it's also the education. It keeps the conversation going, and the education of, you know, what still is a very real pandemic. So
That's a large part of my inspiration too, like Glenn just said. The fact that youth in Southern Florida, age 13 through 24, have the highest incidence of HIV outbreaks, new HIV outbreaks in the entire country. Me being 60 years old, that's unacceptable to me. I lost my friends, you know, I survived, and it inspires me to spread the message. The fundraising tip I have for you is, if anybody asks, how can I ever repay you? I always say, I know how.
It's not built into the K through 12 curriculum, and it's not built into higher ed curriculum, really any place. And so kind of have to learn it on the street, unfortunately, still.
Or
and
on a
so,
bike.
or on a bike. Or on a bike. And it's organizations like this that keep the conversation going. We've talked to the arts folks and, you know, how they make a difference, anywhere from the symphony to the dance companies. We talked to a show that's coming, and HIV and AIDS is one of the topics in a show that's coming to the Broward Center, because they realize someone has to do it. It's not built into the regular curriculum. So thank you all for what you're doing. Glenn?
I would say, especially here in Florida, you know, our state doesn't teach it in the schools. So it's really being left up to the rest of us. And unfortunately, you know, Florida still ranks #1 in the nation for new cases. And that's a lot because there's the minority community, the Latin American, the African American, Islanders, you know, there's so much stigma still around either being gay or being HIV positive, that they choose to just push it in to the side, and they tell people, don't tell anyone, because you'll be picked on, you'll be, you know, abused or whatever it might be. And so how do you get to those folks? You know, the churches aren't willing to talk about it. And how do you communicate out to the general public that this is still a thing?
How do they make the testing resources available? We've talked to me that a lot of the testing was very, very limited during the pandemic. And it doesn't mean that the risk was lower, but the testing was much lower. And so this year has really seen a shift, I think, in all of the resources. So, which means even more so, the smart rides needed even more so. So thank you all for joining. Arthur, if you can put up the links and the websites again so people can see that. It's thesmartride.org. Again, a phenomenal program, a smart ride in the event that spans across the entire state and helps people globally. If you can put up the social media links, Arthur has those for us as well. The Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Again, if you can ride or donate or be on the support team, there's lots and lots of ways to be involved. So thank you, everyone, for being part of it. And Glenn, thank you for taking on the task of transitioning this in a way that you never dreamed you would probably have to.
Took a lot of people and a lot of help. It wasn't just me. Don had some great ideas. So did Jonathan and Annette. Very
good. Well, we look forward to this year's event and to great things to come. If you'd like to stay updated on us, you can text OCQ to 22828. All right, everyone. Have a great afternoon.
Thanks, Stephen.
Thank you, Stephen.
Thank you.
Bye, Don. Bye, Annette. Bye, Glenn.